I call this meeting to order. This is a special public hearing meeting. Today is Monday, November 14th, and the time is 5:15. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording of this meeting will be posted on the district website as soon as possible. I will now read the procedures for public hearings. It is a policy of the Northfield Board of Education to obtain as much information and from as many sources as possible prior to making decisions. In order to assess public attitude, the board will schedule public hearings, the purpose of which is to take public testimony from members of the school district on issues under consideration by the board. Every effort will be provided at a public hearing for all points of view to be heard and considered. To that end, the board has adopted the following procedures. 1, individuals wishing to address the board shall be recognized by the board chair prior to speaking. 2, each speaker will state his or her name prior to making comments. 3, each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes unless the limit is waived by a majority vote of the board members present at the beginning of the hearing. And 4, questions for clarification are appropriate, but debate of issues is not. We will now have a review of the outcomes of the 2021-2022 World's Best Workforce Plan and goals and strategies for the 2022-2023 school year. Welcome, Hope.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to give Corey a minute. Hi, Corey. All right. I'm pleased to be here tonight to talk about our 2022 World's Best Workforce results. Again, grounded in our vision and strategic plan that we prepare every student for lifelong success, developing critical thinkers who are curious and ready to engage in our society. And the benchmarks that we have established actually align quite nicely with World's Best Workforce. So we are unified in our direction and what we are measuring. This year, we are calling the year of reset, as you well know, and that really is targeted towards coming out of the disrupted school years that we've had and rethinking and resetting our procedures, our instruction, how we do things. And so that's really the theme, and you'll see that play out in a couple of our benchmarks this evening. So as you know, World's Best Workforce is a state legislated report around 5 goals, and we're going to cover each of those goals tonight. Each district, while we have the same goals, each district can establish their own means of measuring each of those goals. And so we submit a report to the state, and we typically have gotten feedback. During COVID, we did not, but again, it is locally determined how we measure these metrics, these 5 goals. This report has been presented to Northfield Forward, which is our district advisory committee. And they, again, it's a fantastic group, provided feedback, suggestions, had discussions about each one of our goals. So you will see their input reflected in this presentation. So all children are ready for school. And what you'll see on each goal slide is the goal for 21-22 and then the results. So our goal for the fall of 2022 is that 70% of our kindergartners would meet the grade level benchmark on the STAR early literacy test. And if you recall, we are in our 2nd year of STAR implementation. Our results this year were 64%, so we were close. And then here you are just looking at the trend data. So that gray line on the farthest left is the fall of 2022. So that was a STAR test. 2021 was also a STAR test. And then prior to that, would have been MAP testing. So we did see some nice gains in our demographic groups this year. Again, 1 year is not a trend, but we are pleased with these results. And it does, I will say, I just attended a national Renaissance meeting where this data reflects what they saw in the nationwide data, in that kindergartners rebounded the fastest from disrupted schooling. So we had 230 kids test this fall. And in looking at the data and in thinking about what we are doing, what actions we are taking that we believe will be the most impactful, we are looking at this list. And first and foremost, we have to point out the letters training. And that is happening. We have 5 NCEC staff members that are taking the letters training. And if you recall, it's very intensive training, much like a graduate course. And so we believe that knowledge at the NCEC will really help to get all of our kids that are attending that programming off on the right foot in terms of literacy. The Bridges to K programming, you see this nice jump up in attendance this year, 128 kids enrolling, which is incredible. We also have the expansion of the community school model to all 3 elementary schools, and that has been very well attended in all 3 buildings. We have our navigator still in place. We are still using pre-K curriculum for Hagerty. And I just want to give a shout out to Northfield Promise, who funded the digital version for our teachers this year, which is fantastic. And again, Hagerty is referred to as that universal inoculation against future reading difficulty. So we're really excited that this is really become practice in each one of our NCEC classrooms for pretty minimal amount of instructional time, but a lot of impact for kids in terms of building foundational skills. We also have our Minnesota Reading Corps support at NCEC. They are using talking points. It's rostered through Skyward this year, so that is fantastic. And then we continue with our preschool data sharing. In fact, Erin just told me last week that we are adding a new preschool to this data sharing process. And so we are excited again to continue that work as everybody kind of returns to what looks like typical schooling. So looking ahead to 22-23, we still want to hit that 70% benchmark because we know that our MTSS process can function with greater efficiency and effect if we can get 70% of our kids to that grade level benchmark as they start their kindergarten year. So that will be our continued goal for 22-23. Now we move to our second goal. Again, across the state, everyone has this goal that all 3rd graders can read at grade level. And I don't need to remind you all that the research is very clear on this, that 3rd grade reading proficiency really is an indicator for future success, not only in school, but in post-secondary and beyond. So we were looking for 65% of our kids to meet or exceed grade level standards on the 2022 MCA. We actually had 57% meet. We had another slight downturn in that proficiency rate in the 2022 testing season. There you see our results. And again, overall, we were down, the state was flat, and the state is that black line at 48% of 3rd graders in the state of Minnesota proficient. We did see some increases in some demographic groups, as you can see, Hispanic, FRP, and our special education students. Again, we're going after that with some instructional changes and really just really focusing in on our core instruction this year. And I feel pretty good that we're going to turn this 2-year downward trend around. But again, these were the kids that were in pandemic schooling when the foundational literacy skills were being laid down. So we're excited about those increases in the demographic groups, but we know we have work to do in the overall proficiency rate. So you know that I like to give context for that proficiency rate, because that is one metric is the proficiency rate for your district, but it's another metric to look at the state landscape for all independent school districts. And so we have that in a table for all grade levels, and which is not showing. So what do I need to do? Mr. Tim, I think you guys have it. While he's going to come out and figure that out, I am going to just tell you verbally. Escape. All right, here we go. Okay, so in this table, and I'm just going to blow this up. If you see the grade level, and then you see the subject area. And then if that subject area is bolded in green, that means our proficiency rate was above the state proficiency rate. If it's not green, which we did have 2 cases of this year, then we were below the state proficiency rate. So in 3rd grade reading, our proficiency rate was 57%. We know we can do better than that. We dropped by 3.2% this year from 21 to 22. The state dropped 0.4%. However, the second column from the right is where that proficiency rate played out in the state. And so our proficiency rate of 57% still put us higher than 230 districts, or 72% of the 01 independent school districts, where they were testing more than 10 kids. So just for additional context, the highest proficiency rate in 3rd grade in the state was Hancock at 82.1%, and 16 districts across the state had a rate greater than 70%. So the landscape is not that there are a ton of districts at 99% proficiency. It's just not happening yet. So again, I think it's important to understand, yes, we are not pleased with that proficiency rate. We know we can do better, and we were working really hard to do that. But that proficiency rate put us higher than 72% of other independent school districts. It's just one additional piece of information about that particular measure. I'm gonna get out of this, and we'll go back into this. All right. So we are gonna stay with that 65% of 3rd graders, because we believe that with our action steps, we are going to see some changes. We are already seeing some good growth in our students from their fall STAR and the SIP goals that have been set at the building level, and the growth that occurred from Family Conference Day to end of 1st quarter. So this is our goal for 2023. And here's what we are doing to make that goal a reality. So the letters training, I just actually checked before I came downstairs, because this is pretty amazing. We have 48 teachers. We have 6 administrators, either doing the full letters training, or we have some administrators doing the letters for administrator training that's being offered through the region, through the Southwest Service or service cooperatives. They're all over the state. You could pick which one you wanted to do. So we have all 3 elementary principals doing that training. I'm in that, plus the full training. We have Sarah Pratt doing it. We have a good spread of people getting this really important training. So as of tonight, because they're still coming in every day, 176 units have been completed by our 48 staff members, which is amazing. So there's 8 units in the whole course. and people are through Unit 5, so they're more than halfway there, which is fantastic. And we, as you know, we are paying a stipend to teachers who complete each unit at 80% or higher and attend the live sessions that's 3 hours each. And to date, as of today, we paid out $88,000 in stipends to teachers for completing their letters units. So we are really, I couldn't be more proud of the staff that are committed to this and are doing this even while they're teaching full time and have their families, because this is intense training, but super valuable training in knowing what the brain does when it learns to read. We also have, in general, smaller class sizes this year, and that's helping teachers with the ability to do some targeted interventions in the class. And there's some exciting things going on with literacy in the PLC teams. And we're really focusing on what it is that we're doing in our CCC curriculum to make sure everybody's getting strong Tier 1 curriculum. The district MTSS process and dashboard, it's exciting to see the building and the district leadership teams developing our MTSS system and the ability to respond to students who are in need. The dashboard through 5Lab, now called Student Analytics, is really coming along, and they are now adding our STAR CBM, our progress monitoring data, which we've never had in a dashboard with the benchmark data. So there's some pretty exciting things happening there. Reset on instructional practices and the PLC reset are really intertwined. We are able to be in PLCs, give feedback, talk to teams, and it's pretty exciting to see the work going on and to start to see some of the results play out. So interventions, we are still using SIPs. We are seeing good results with SIPs. It's aligned to Tier 1 CCC curriculum, so that's really great. We still have fast forward going on. We have some, our middle school access teacher, Claire Anderson, is doing some really great things with a Voyager Sopris who publishes letters. One of their interventions, Scott Stanina at the high school as well. So we feel like we have a good menu of things to offer kids who are needing some additional reading support. Minnesota Reading Corps is a huge part of that. And we have a full slate of tutors, which really, if you think about the current work environment and the difficulties some businesses are having finding workers, and the fact that we have a full slate of tutors is incredible. And that runs from NCEC into every elementary building. So that's exciting. Shout out to those tutors and Teresa Bauman for coaching them, because they're doing a great job. Use of the STAR curriculum-based measures, CBMs, this is a big deal. And this was the work teams this summer who really thought it was important to streamline the progress monitoring process within a single platform. It wasn't many years ago where we had people doing dibbles in one platform, map in another platform, and teachers, and then we were having to report things on Google Sheets. And now everything is in that STAR platform, and teachers are very comfortable with it. There's a lot of nice goal setting that can be done with these CBMs, and we're seeing people use that so that kids really have a good understanding of where they need to go, as do their parents, right? And so this piece, while it may not seem big, is because it allows teachers to really do some quick measurements on progress. So we think that will be impactful for third grade. Goal 3, all racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed. We have, if you've been with World's Best Workforce for a few years, we have tried a number of different things to really get after this achievement gap. And so we've set a number of different goals. We have landed on attendance because we know that attendance matters. And this is something that we have devoted significant resources too, in terms of the family engagement navigators and the attendance liaison. And so this is something that we believe we can make an impact, which will in turn help students be more successful in school. So our goal was that the rates of our FRP and students of color demographic groups will meet or exceed the rate of non-FRP and white peers in 21-22. So when we looked at our data, again, MDE has not reported accountability attendance data in 2 years. So we are still using our local data for this metric. Whereas prior to that, when they were reporting attendance data, we could use the MDE official data, but they have not done that yet. So our non-free and reduced lunch and white student groups had consistent attendance rates of 75%, and FRP was at 60 and students of color at 62. So there was still a gap that remained last year. Now, attendance last year still had a lot of COVID involvement, right? They were still quarantining. There were still greater kids absence due to illness and quarantine. So we believe that this year is going to be more typical. And so we're going to keep that goal. There you see the demographic breakdown of consistent attendance. And again, 90% or better days present. So it doesn't take much to get below that 10%. So we're going to keep that goal for this year because we are devoting a lot of, again, resources to helping remove barriers to regular attendance. So our action steps for this particular goal, the family engagement navigators, again, Heidi and Cindy doing a fantastic job covering the elementary schools. We now have, using MTSS grant money, an attendance liaison at the high school. She can also help with the middle school. We have Sebastian Brissett, our cultural liaison, who does a lot of work with the middle school attendance support. And they all meet regularly with Carrie Duba as part of the MTSS process. And so we have good tabs on who needs what help and trying to, again, remove barriers to regular school attendance. The MTSS process and the dashboard, obviously the attendance is a big part of that. So on the dashboard, you can see attendance with test scores and everything else we have in there. And we do see, kids who are not consistently attending in general do not have they have lower test scores than their consistently attending peers. And it's very obvious on the dashboard that is the case. So hence our commitment to this work to make sure that we're helping families get kids to school. The PLC work, we do have some teams working on goals specifically related to connectedness with kids. And we think, again, when they feel connected, they are more likely to attend regularly. So that's an important piece of work. The SEL survey that is now in place is monumental. We gave our first administration of that in grades 3 through 12, which was our first student report ever, right, in Northfield, of a nationally normed social emotional survey. We were pleased with the results. We think that our kids reported good skills, both internalizing and externalizing behaviors. And so again, that piece will help us identify kids, and they've already started this process at the buildings, who maybe were flying under the radar. We did not know that they had some risk factors. Then our MTSS process is moving people into place to support those kids. So that's a big piece that we think will help, again, with our overall response. And then we have some new programming. So we have community school, as we talked about, and then we have the ACES program at the middle school. And I did not know this, but now I do, that it stands for Athletes Committed to Educating Students. So that we were one of the towns selected for that, but that's pretty exciting stuff. So we believe, again, those will help kids feel connected to school. Goal 4, all students are ready for career in college. So you've seen these goals before. We believe that eighth grade MCA results are a good predictor of student performance in high school. So we wanted to see 65% of our eighth graders proficient on the MCA reading and math test in 2022. And then we also wanted to have 40% of our high school seniors be ready for show career and college readiness by meeting that benchmark for each of the subtests on the ACT. We have tweaked this to some degree because we have seen over the past few years that when we use that junior year test date only, it is most kids' first attempt at the ACT. So if it's going to be our lowest metric, and we do get an official report in the fall, late September, on the graduating class for that year. And that is ACT's super scoring of each student's ACT results, no matter how many they took. They're taking the highest score, and we feel like that's a better measure. So that's the one we have been using to report out for World's Best Workforce. So our results: eighth grade MCA reading proficiency 45%, math 50%, and we were at 34% for kids who were college ready in all 4 subtests. Now, those eighth grade scores, we were all surprised by those. This is not a pretty graph to look at. This is not where we want to be, but I do want to take you to the state context because it's important. That was magic. Who did that? Tim must have done that. All right. So I see that you can see that 8th grade reading and 10th grade reading are the 2 MCA tests where we did not hit the state average. We were below the state average. So that 44.6% still put us, midway in the state. And that was surprising to me. That science at 31.1 put us still higher than 67. 2/3 of the districts had proficiency rates below 31%. 8th grade, if you read the press, was a problematic year across the state of Minnesota this year. 2 years of pandemic schooling for middle schoolers, clearly had an impact. This is not where we want to stay. We have PLC teams at the middle school really digging into this and doing some really great things. And we're going to go over those action steps, but this is where we're at for 8th grade. Way to go, Tim. And then you just saw the math, so I'm going to move on from that. So ACT, we actually are celebrating a win here in that our average score for the class of 2022, and if you think about it, they were greatly impacted by this pandemic. They did have an uptick. So 0.3, but we'll take it when the state dropped and the nation dropped to the lowest average score in their tenure of giving the test. So, and, we still had a pretty stable amount of kids opting to take the AccuPlacer or the ASVAB. And that runs around 30 to 40 kids. And that's been pretty constant ever since we started offering that choice. So we do not believe that played into this at all. But we are happy to take the win and continue on an upward trend. There you see we did have a drop in the percentage of kids who are hitting the college ready benchmark in English, math, reading, and science. Math was the subtest that caused the most struggle for our kids. But again, that team came together this summer from the high school to really dig into what they're teaching and align to the standards. And we had a nice Tableau data set for them to use. So and their PLC teams are working really hard. So I think we're going to see a turnaround there. So we're gonna leave that one alone in our quest for return to normalcy. So 65% for 8th grade and 40% showing meeting that college ready benchmark. So action steps for us. Avid is really going strong at the middle school, and we are super excited. Dr. Hillman and I were at their showcase last week where we could meet with the Avid trainer and then also see examples of student work. So the elective course is in place for the first time this year. They have some PLC goals around that, the performance of that group, and achievement and integration goals around that. Teachers receiving lots of training about Avid strategies that they can use for all students, and they're just great instructional strategies, and we believe that's going to make a difference. So also our PLC focus on student achievement outcomes and really embedding some training in there and feedback that is more immediate, that if a goal was written that was about adult behavior and not student outcomes, we asked teams to go back to the drawing board and rewrite the goal. So we believe that this renewed focus on the PLC process will again drive some positive student achievement outcomes. And the high school is refocusing their efforts on the purpose and power of CCR and flex time. So you'll see some changes happening there in terms of how kids move through that process and what they're doing during that time. They're utilizing the Naviance platform, which has some powerful training tools in there for kids and resources for kids. And then again, this district and building MTSS team to really look at what we're doing to support all kids and strengthen what we're doing really primarily in tier 1, first and foremost, and then as kids need additional layers of support. You guys are doing great. On the last goal, all students graduate from high school. So we wanted a 4-year district graduation rate. And I think it's important to say that a district graduation rate of at least 95%, and our district graduation rate was 90.4. It was 96.7 for Northfield High School. Again, this is for 2021. We will not get the class of 2022 graduation data till about late February is typically when they release it. So it's a 1-year delay. And there you see the graphs for the district. So just a slight drop in the FRP graduation rate. Northfield High School, however, again had a slight drop in FRP, but a very much of an increase in the Hispanic graduation rate. Again, those cell sizes for any given class are pretty small, so any movement in students to the unknown category or the dropout category or the continuing category can greatly impact those student groups because the cell size is so small. The ALC had a decline again this year, and we did apply as a state for a waiver to the federal government, specifically asking to exclude ALCs from this 4-year graduation rate accountability measure. We were turned down, so it remains. And while we welcome the support we get from the Regional Centers for Excellence, they do have great people that have given us support in a lot of different ways. We know that every student that is behind that 53.3 and 49 is a win. And it's a decided win when we're talking about a disrupted school year where, kids were, having some more difficulty with both mental health or any risk factor or even just getting to school regularly. every one of those kids is a win, and we will take it. The ALC is completely committed to, again, connecting with kids and getting them to school. And Daryl is about one of the best data guys I know in terms of really tracking each individual student and doing what they can to get those students going. So it is what it is. And we just commit to, again, making sure we are connecting with every student and getting them what they need. So we want to stay with that 95%. We believe we can get there. And that's our goal. So one of the things that we're doing this year, and it's just shout out to Shane and his team and the high school staff, is just some increased clarity about attendance expectations at the high school. And you'll see that in their messaging, and it's very clear. And they have communicated it with kids, and they communicated with families, and the staff is on board. You know, what is happening with attendance. Everybody knows the process and the expectations. So we believe that alone will help with, again, student outcomes, because if they're there, we can get them the help they need, and they can make the progress that we need them to make. The peer helper program continues to be successful and utilized heavily by high school students. And so that, again, helps kids stay engaged in their schooling. The MTSS team at the high school and the intervention planning that is happening is again strengthened, and we believe will play out in graduation rates, because we're catching kids before they get too far behind in their credits. PLC work, again, some great feedback given to PLC teams, and PLC teams really digging in at the high school to tackle their tier 1 instruction for kids so that more kids can be successful. And then the family engagement plan and process that's been laid out, where we are having additional touch points with families over the course of a year, not just fall and spring. And we are excited to see the impact of that new plan and how that plays out for kids and families. So it's been a long time where we couldn't say we hit even a single world's best workforce goal, but that is our reality right now. And we, again, are committed to this reset, which will help us get back on course and continue the upward trends we were seeing prior to COVID. So that's just, you know, I like my little graphic of what's coming for the 2022-23 school year. Same goals you just saw. And then part of our presentation, as required by state legislation, is that we must, again, publicly inform you that our ALC continues to be identified as a school that is prioritized for comprehensive support because of their 67% four-year graduation rate. And again, it's focused on 2 student demographic groups, which is all students and white students at the ALC. Those are the 2 groups that have been identified. And then this year there was something new in the identification process, and that was linked high schools. So ALCs that were identified who drew 30% or more of their enrollment from a particular high school, then had that high school be identified as a linked high school. So it's pretty clear in Northfield that our ALC is going to draw 30% or more of its enrollment from our high school, because geographically that's where we're at, and that's what we do. So it's not surprising, but this is something new this year. So we have a new plan in place. It was accepted in the spring of 2022 for our achievement and integration plan. So this is, again, this would be our second round of achievement and integration. We had our first 3-year plan. Now we have this one. So we are focusing on credit deficiency, credit attainment, and at the high school. And then our proficiency rates for our free and reduced lunch population students. And again, it's a 3-year plan, so we're looking for incremental improvement And then Ds and Fs at the high school. And again, that goal 1 and goal 3 are really quite related to what our reality was coming out of the pandemic school years. And so we think that we're going to see good progress on these goals. And then goal 4 is, again, we are committed to our data summit with the Faribault, Waterville, Elysian, and Tri-City United School Districts. We've already met. We meet again on Thursday to plan the December data summit. We had one in May. We're hosting again. We're hoping, that there will be another host eventually, but it is really a great collaborative effort, really well received by kids. The kids give us some great insights. So, that's a goal that we really feel that really makes a difference for our kids in terms of their investment in their own data, really. And you made it. Nice job.
Thank you, Hope. We appreciate you. Okay, I don't know if we have any community feedback. Okay, so we'll move on to adjournment of this hearing. Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Amy, second by Julie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.